Today, we're chatting with Ron Deal about building love together in blended families. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
This is a book that you wrote with Dr. Gary Chapman, and it uses the five love languages as part of the book. How did you and Dr. Chapman land on this idea for the book?
Well, I came to Gary one day. He and I have collaborated many times in the past, and I said, of all the great things that you have done and all the ways you've applied the love languages, there's a very unique situation that has never been addressed, and it has to do with the asymmetrical relationships in step families. And what I mean by that is this: if I'm trying to love somebody with their love language, it's great if they want me to love them that way. I mean, think about it. One of the assumptions of the five love languages is knowing the other person's love language helps you better communicate the love and affection that you feel for them. And it helps them embrace that and feel loved by you. Well, what if they aren't really sure they want to be loved by you? Like in a step parent, stepchild classic scenario where the step parent's working really hard to develop and bond a relationship with the child, but the child's like, I like you, but I don't really need you that close to me. And oh, by the way, my dad, loves me with my love language. So thank you, stepdad. I don't really need that from you. What do you do then? I mean, that's the kind of thing that happens a lot in blended families. And so this is such a growing population of people. We knew we needed to write a book just for them.
What are some of the steps that you can take with a stepchild to sort of overcome those fears and build the trust issues?
Yeah, just one application that we talk about in this book, Building Love Together in Blended Families, is the together part. You have to co-create something that the child is okay with. So let's say a child's love language is physical touch. Well, let me give you a quick analogy. If I asked you to go to your neighbor's house, the person you've never met before that just moved into the neighborhood, and start hugging them, not a good idea,
Yeah.
right? You can't do that until they trust you, unless they know who you are and they know what you're about. Like, you have to do the preliminary things before you can move into the deeper spaces of someone's heart. Same thing's true in step parenting. But what a stepchild may receive from you is the fist bump. They may receive, they're in social distancing, the elbow thing, or just finding an acceptable amount of physical touch that is okay with them. You have to start with, we call that level one touch in that case. And level two will come over the passage of time, and maybe, not necessarily always, but maybe you can get to a level three bear hug, come here, let me give you a noogie, kind of fun, loving, touch between step parent and stepchild. But you have to grow into that, and you have to see the wisdom of not pushing too hard too soon.
What are some of the challenges that the couple themselves face in this situation? It's a new marriage, or it's a younger marriage between two people who perhaps both bring children to the situation. What do they need to be cautious of in all of that? And
Yeah.
I'm thinking in particular that when it comes to an issue, it's the playing stepdad against mom, that kind of thing.
Mm. Yes. Yeah. Well, really, there's a host of things. There's, how do we work together as a parent and step parent team? What if our parenting styles are different? We have to overcome that one. What if one of us has a former spouse who is co-parenting the children and they're still in influence? How you deal with your former spouse has a lot to do with how we parent in our home and the values that we're trying to teach, and how you and I get along when you're dealing with the other. Like, there's a lot of dynamics there in the parenting realm. And then there's marriage stuff. What you and I expect of one another regarding our children. Like, I expect you to love my children deeply, but they're not letting me love them deeply. What do I do now? Like, are we disappointing one another as it relates to bonding and family and that sort of thing? And then here's one more quick application of the love language principles that Gary teaches so well. What if your former spouse, their love language was one thing, and your new spouse, their love language is another thing? Or this is a little more nuanced. We tell the story in the book about a guy, true story, about a gentleman whose first wife, her love language was quality time. His second wife, he discovered quality time. He's like, hey, I know how to do this. Nope, because their dialects were different. And
Right.
dialects have to do with the specifics of how you fulfill that. So his first wife, quality time, they could sit and watch a movie together. And that was a wonderful experience for her, connecting, relationship, opportunity. But his second wife, that didn't count. Like quality time meant face to face, talk, sharing, communicating. So he had to unlearn some things and relearn some things. Like that, just the little discipline there, that's the practice of loving well, but it took some effort on his part.
Right. Well, very good. Thank you, Ron, for taking time today to talk about building love together in blended families. Any little tidbit of advice during isolation? How do you handle all of that?
Oh
Um,
my goodness. I'm telling the world right now that everyone in the world who does not live in a blended family is experiencing what it's like to live in a blended family. Social distancing is what we do when we're pulling back to what's safe and comfortable. The same dynamic happens in a blended family, but it works against you. You're trying to come together and merge, but when you're unsure of the environment and the climate, you tend to pull back to where you're safe, into the people and places and rituals and customs that makes you feel safe. Well, in a blended family, that pulls people apart. So you have to overcome social distancing in blended families in order to find merging, the opportunity to build love together. It does take intentional effort, and you just have to work at it and not let up and not just retreat back and hold on to that. That way, if you do that, you're never going to overcome that inertia.
well, thank you so much for taking the time today. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah, glad to be here.